Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book podcast. My name is Eric Wilbanaw, the president of the Baseball Blue Book, and today we are back in the great state of Mississippi with Coach Dan Rives at Hinds Community College. How are you, sir?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Love these episodes, and really I'm really enjoying the state of Mississippi and the community college network down there. It's a pretty powerful uh, conference and what's come out of there. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your program and hearing about your journey. Before we begin, though, I want to make sure that everybody subscribes to the channel. Helps us out, guys. It actually helps with your comments and sharing, directing what you guys want to hear, and it's been a lot of fun. So please encourage you to subscribe and share this episode with the people that you know. Coach, we always start with the journey, hearing about your coach's journey, and then also we'll kind of follow that with your program, what makes it unique, what type of players you're looking for, where you look for the players. So why don't you go ahead and get this thing kicked off with your journey?
All right. I grew up in the Mississippi Delta. My dad was a longtime basketball coach at Delta State University. So that's that's really where I wanted to play. Certainly would have loved to have played in the SEC, but I realized my talent limitations at an early age. But I went to Cleveland High School. I played for a guy named Steve Weiss, who was also our school soccer coach. And I didn't appreciate it at the time. He was tough. He was really demanding of us. You know, probably did some things coaching wise. He was crazy at times, but you appreciate it now because he built that toughness in us. He was a really good coach. He was by himself. He didn't have an assistant coach. So it was just him and 30 knuckleheads basically. And he had to try to corral us. But we won a state championship my senior year of high school. I ended up going to Delta State. I played there for 2 seasons. Played for Mike Kennison, who's one of the best coaches in the country. Just a fantastic coach. We had a really good staff when I was there. Christian Ostrander was our pitching coach, who's now the pitching coach at the University of Southern Mississippi. Rodney Batts was our other paid assistant coach. He's the head coach at Delta State. We had a really good list of graduate assistants, and so got a great baseball training there at Delta State. I redshirted my first season. I had just turned 18 years old, and I was scrawny. I needed to gain some weight, and I could certainly handle the game from a mental standpoint, but physically, those guys were older, they were better, they were stronger than me. And at 18, it's hard to see that. Yeah. You don't realize those things. And I realize it now as a coach at 40, but I didn't necessarily realize it at the time. But I redshirted my first year. Came back my second year, and I got to play a little bit. There were still some guys that were better and physically just bigger and stronger than me. We won 50 games both years that I was there. Went to the World Series both years that I was there. But as a competitor, you want to play more, and that was probably the toughest decision that I have ever had to make was to leave Delta State. I ended up going to Mississippi Delta Community College, and it was strictly to play more. I just wanted to play more. I loved my time at Delta State. The coaches were great. They treated me great. I just wanted to play more, and so I went to Mississippi Delta, played there in 2003 for a guy named Terry Thompson, and was a very good coach, really good pitching mind, really big in the mental game. So I got to see things from a little bit different perspective maybe than I saw at Delta State. And played there and really loved that experience. Had intentions and plans of going back to Delta State, but I went to Mississippi College instead, and I played there in 2004, 2005 at Mississippi College for a guy named Lee Kirkendall. I had plans again to be a graduate assistant when I got done playing there at MC, to be a graduate assistant at Mississippi College. Fate intervened somewhere in between there, and the guy that was a longtime head coach at Hinds Community College was a guy named Rick Clark. Coach Clark retired after the 2005 season, and they hired a guy named Sam Temple, who was our lead assistant at Mississippi College. He gets the job here at Hinds and brings me with him. And at 23 years old, I got an opportunity to come over here and jump right into it. My first 2 years, or really year and a half, I was considered a graduate assistant. So I was getting my master's at Mississippi College, but then coming over here and coaching. And I was here throughout the day, and I learned so much because as a player, you think you have it all figured out, you know. And I get into coaching and realize I had a whole heck of a lot to learn. I had a good background just from the guys that I played under. And then my dad, certainly. My dad's one of the best coaches I've ever been around. And even though it's a different sport, just the learning how to coach and things of that nature. So I felt like I had a pretty good base of it. But again, when you jump into it, it's a completely different deal. But I was here for 11 years as an assistant coach under Coach Temple. We had a heck of a lot of success, which I'll talk more about whenever we talk more about the program. Um, but I needed to go be a head coach. I wanted to go be a head coach. I was 34 years old at the time, and I needed to go. I needed to make a lot. I needed to go take a picture out of the game. I needed to discipline players, just things that I felt like I needed to take that next step and do. And so I went to Mississippi Delta Community College. I actually replaced Michael Avalon, who we were talking about earlier, when he took the Pearl River job that opened up the Mississippi Delta job. I was there for 4 years as the head coach, really 3.5. The 2020 season was my last season, which was certainly cut short. But and then I spent a year as the athletic director / sports information director at Mississippi Delta. Thought administration was around. I needed it at the time. It was a good move for me professionally at the time because I got to see some things from a different perspective. Yeah. Again, I guess the good Lord intervening or fate intervening. Coach Temple ends up going to Clinton High School right down the road where he had been previously. He always wanted to get back into high school baseball. The Clinton High School opportunity opened up. It was a great move for him professionally. That's what he wanted to do. And of course, it opened up the Hinds job, and he and I talked and was able to land this opportunity. So I'm in year 2 here as the head coach, and certainly thrilled to be here.
That's great. You talked about. I'm going to take you all the way back to the high school into college, and kind of the perspectives that you didn't really realize until now that you're a coach, and it was kind of the size, right? Those 17, 18-year-old kids that are coming in thinking that they can play, and then realizing it real quick that there's people, there's other kids that are ahead of them. You said mentally you were prepared, and you thought you were right there, but physically. Talk about that as far as kind of the growth that you had to go through, because it was probably one of the first kind of maybe setbacks that you had in your career and your journey, and how you dealt with that and how it helped you kind of get to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah, it's just different, and nothing really. Whenever he and I talked, I mean, he was very honest with me, and I had a feeling that I was going to go in there and get redshirted because I grew up watching Delta State baseball, and I knew how good they were, and I knew that physicality and strength and conditioning, they were kind of on the cutting. Delta State's players are always bigger, always stronger, maybe than their opponents, and so that was well known that you had to be physically strong and had to reach that level. And again, I turned 18 on 3rd, and I enrolled in school, I think, on August 18th. So, I mean, I had just turned 18 years old, and I was about 155 pounds. And I even told our team this the other day. I was kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I was a middle infielder that also pitched, and I didn't really know what my identity was, honestly, as a player. I felt like I was good in both, but I wasn't great in either one. I was a strike thrower, had a really good changeup, and all those things. And I guess maybe I felt like, because I had a solid high school career, really more toward the end of my high school career, and we'd won a state championship, that you can jump in there and play, and not necessarily play a whole lot, but just maybe make an impact. But then you realize that those guys are 21 years old,
right,
22 years old, because at Delta State at the time, the junior college league in the state of Mississippi was a little bit different. So there was nothing wrong with going out of high school to Delta State and redshirting a year and getting bigger and stronger than playing for 4 years. Guys don't do that as much as they do nowadays. And so, because it's now a lot more of an instant gratification deal where they want to continue to play. And looking back on it, the junior college move would have been the right move for me as a player. It would have been the best move for me to play right better. I wanted to go to Delta State. I'd always been around that program. Again, my dad coached basketball there, and we played green and white, and so that's what I wanted to go do. And I wanted to be successful and go to the World Series and do all those things. But again, you realize that those guys they're 4 years older than you, and they've got 600 at bats under their belt, and the guys on the mound have 250 to 300 innings under their belt, and they're just better. They're just experienced, and you don't. It's hard to realize that at 18 years old, and I try to, we try to get that across to the recruits and the guys that we bring on campus at 16, 17 years old. I have to think back in how I was at 16 and 17 and 18 years old, and you don't necessarily realize those things until you get thrown into the fire. And even at our level, we see that a lot. Guys that think they had a very successful high school career, I'm going to immediately jump in here and play. That's not always the case. There's guys that are better than you or comparable in terms of talent. What do I have to do to be able to get on the field? And so it was an eye opener. Again, I kind of knew what to expect, but until you actually get in there and realize these guys are really good. I played second base, and the guy that played second base in front of me was Evan Mason Net, that played the big leagues for close to a decade. So I was nowhere near that level of ability. But again, at 18, 19, you don't know that. You kind of have to see it for yourself. Then it becomes real. And again, the hardest decision I had to make. I still think the world of all the coaches up there, especially Coach Kennison. He was such a good coach. I mean, such a good coach, so successful. He won close to 80% of his games throughout his time at Delta State, which is remarkable. But having that phone conversation, and he wasn't happy, and I don't blame him. I wanted to play. I wanted to and that was strictly the only reason why I went to the junior college route. Was I just wanted to be a part of that. And you work hard. You see these guys, realizing the fruits of their labor. You want to be able to realize the fruits of that labor, as well. And you want to get out there and be right there in the action as well. So that was the reason why I did that. And but yeah, it was a different deal. And coaches say it. It sounds like a cliche, but the each level that you go up, it's just completely different. From high school to junior college, from junior college to four-year college, four-year college to the professional ranks, it's all a different ball game. And you just have the quicker you adjust to it, you'll give yourself an opportunity to be.
That's great. And Coach, this is the reason why I love listening to the journeys of you guys, because the experience that you bring and what you've gone through. I think it's really important for our audience to take these things, because it's questions that they have, right? I think one of the questions you hear all the time is playing versus being part of a winning team, right? And that's exactly what you went through, right? You were on a winning team. You went to the World Series back to back, but you weren't able to play. So I think that's really great, just a experience. And you kind of explained it. It was nice to be a part of the winning team, but you really just wanted to experience the playing and be part of making the difference in what you went through. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. It sounds a little bit the jack of all trades, master of none, kind of going through baseball, kind of carried over into your coaching, because you jumped into administration. You wanted to learn that. It sounds like you used some of those things to kind of propel you and make some decisions that you needed to do to kind of maybe hone your skills, find some areas that you needed to work on. Talk about the value of maybe focusing on areas that maybe you aren't as good at, and what that's done for you now being a head coach at Hinds.
Well, and to go on with that, I was also a jack of all trades, master of none when I got into coaching here at Hinds. After I got done being a graduate assistant, I ended up working on campus. The guy that was a longtime sports information director, he was also our public relations. I think he did the yearbook and a couple of other duties here on campus. He retired, and so I ended up becoming kind of the de facto sports. So that was a job that just helped make put a little bit of money in my pocket, because I wasn't making a whole lot of money at the time. I was married, and we had a kid on the way, and I wasn't making, again, a whole lot of money. And then that was a role that ended up becoming almost too much to handle, to be honest with you, because it then became almost like two full-time jobs, where I'm trying to do everything I can as the assistant baseball coach and full-time assistant baseball coach, and doing all the recruiting, or the large majority of the recruiting. Coach Temple was certainly very hands-on and involved in that, but trying to build this program more than anything, and try to go find the right players. But I was also the full-time sports information director too. We were in charge of 12 sports, and so we rebuilt our website 3 different times, and so I'm burning the candle at both ends there, which probably shows why I have gray hair now. But no, the lessons that you learn throughout, you learn how to deal with those things. You learn that people are counting on you. My boss over in the PR department, which is where the sports information part was tied into, honestly, she didn't really care if I got in at 11:30 the night before. I had a job to do. Yeah. They were counting on me. They were counting on me to come through on the part of the sports information. Whereas Coach Temple, my boss on the baseball side, same thing. I mean, I may have 3 press releases to write, but I may need to go watch this player, or we may have work with practice, and I need to be out there involved in that. And they were all great. They all treated me great. They were understanding, but at the same time, I mean, they have jobs to do too, and they have people under their that they have to hold accountable too. So it was one of those deals where I was constantly trying to please everybody, and it was tough because you want to do a good job and you want people to be able to rely on you. But sometimes when people rely on you, then you get more tasks, which is a good thing in your development down the line. But it also wears you thin a little bit too. And so I saw a little bit of that. So yeah, my collegiate experience, and then playing for the coaches that I played for, that you don't know it at the time. Again, I know I mentioned that earlier, but 17 really years old in high school, they're preparing you well beyond your time playing under them. And again, you don't realize that you're naive and you're young and mentally immature. You don't realize it at that age, and then you're riding down the road at 30 years old. Those guys are right. Those guys are right on the money, and you appreciate them so much more the longer you get out of it. And we do the same thing with our guys. I tell them that all the time. You don't appreciate this now. You don't appreciate us holding you accountable now. You'll realize it when you have a wife and kids, and people are counting on you one day. And unless you're your own boss, somebody's going to be your boss one day, and so you have to be able to go along with the expectations and the accountability that they're holding you under.
Coach, even when you're your own boss, you've probably got more people that are looking and expecting and counting on you, which is what I love about what you said about being the sports information director. One of the things, it's almost like a marketing position, right? It's a PR. It's really promoting the program, the college. One of the things what I hear you saying is really, when you get into that, understanding what it really takes, because if you're doing it right, it is a full-time job. If you're doing these things the way it needs to be done, and which helps you now in a position as a coach, you have that level of understanding how difficult it is and how much time it takes, but what you really expect from that. And I think that's what you talk. Well, that's what I'm hearing you say, is it really is giving you that perspective of the big picture. Because I always say the head coach is the CEO. The CEO can't do it all. They're delegating, right? They're a delegator. They give responsibilities, but they have expectations of how those assignments need to be done.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I think that's one thing that I struggle with, honestly, is certain tasks. I know how I want things done. And so sometimes I go in there and just do it myself. And then I get frustrated, and I'm like, well, I could have easily passed it off, but I also know how I want it done too.
Right.
Our lead assistant is Josh Clark. He's Rick Clark, that I mentioned earlier, that had retired from Hinds, which opened up the door for Sam Temple to get the job here. Josh grew up in this program. That's his dad, and his dad coached here for 20 plus years. He's very much the same way. And so he and I laugh about it all that time. We're always, we don't ask for help, and we probably should, but you kind of get used to doing things a certain way, and you learn those things throughout. You don't know those things at 23, but you learn those things throughout your journey, which I think can be.
That's great, Coach. I appreciate you sharing your journey with us. We're going to head into the program, kind of what you're looking for, building the program, and it's always interesting to hear, because when coaches come in, you've been there you've been head coach since 2021. Is that what it?
Yes, yeah. Yes, summer of 21.
Okay, and before we get into that, I just want to encourage everybody to subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you like, you share, and follow us on Twitter as well. We are with Dan Rives today, head coach at Hinds Community College down in the great state of Mississippi. And Dan, let's talk about the program, what makes it unique, kind of what you. Again, one of the things, the reason I brought up when you became the head coach, you always hear people want to bring in kind of their own ideas of what they've learned into the program, but also there's that balance, because Hinds has had a pretty successful career. It's been a great program. You're following the footsteps of some people that have done a really good job. So talk about the program, what you wanted to bring in, what you liked about the program, and what type of players that you're looking for.
Yeah. So one thing that I feel very fortunate in is that I'm only the third head coach in the last 40 years here. So that shows here. That shows that this is a program that has had a lot of success, and that this is a really good place to coach. Um, the two men that preceded me, Rick Clark, again, I mentioned him earlier. He was here for 20 plus years as the head coach. Had a lot of success. Went to 4 World Series. Actually took the 1989 team to Grand Junction back when it was Division One, but then ended up going in 94, 95. They went back-to-back years in the World Series. Leaguers on that team, Chad Bradford, namely, was one that played here, but had a heck of a lot of players throughout that 2-year run that were really good. And then they went back in 1999. The World Series was in Millington at that time, Millington, Tennessee, in '99. And then he again retired after the 2005 season. Sam Temple took his place. Coach Temple played here. Was from Vicksburg, which is only half an hour away from here, but to stay. Was in the high school ranks for a while at Warren Central and Clinton High School, and then Mississippi College as an assistant, and then got this job, and then he was here for 17 years. I was with him for 11 of those. We won 4 state championships, actually 3 state championships, 1 regional championship when I was here in that 11-year span, and then we went to the World Series in 2014, played for national championship. And then they went back in 2017, year after I left. And so you're talking about a program with six World Series appearances, 8 state championships, which our league is incredibly. Yeah. There's really good programs all over the league, and it's always been good, but I think it's at its peak now. For various reasons, but it's a tough league to compete in. We've had 21 world regional appearances. We've been in the playoffs 8 straight times as a program, and so for us, giving ourselves that opportunity to compete in postseason play is what we're looking for. We've had some teams here. I think our 2010 team, which Josh Clark is our top assistant, he was on that team. He was the closer on that team. I still but the ball didn't necessarily bounce our way, and we came up a little short in the regional finals. And then in 2014, we certainly had a good team, a young team that got hot late, and then we played for a national championship. So sometimes the ball has to kind of bounce your way, and you got to get some breaks along the way. But we've had a lot of success here, won a lot of championships, and we just redid the back of our third base dugout. We put a picture out there a couple weeks ago on Twitter, but redid it, and it's got all of the teams that have been to the World Series, all the teams that have won championships. It's got pictures of the dog piles, and we want our guys to see that. That's our home dugout. We want them to see that on the way to the dugout every single day. It's good because it looks good right off the road. There's a lot of views and people that pass by Clinton Raymond Road every single day and see that. But we want our current guys to see that, and we want to add to that. We want to add another dog pile or a championship photo, to that wall, because this place is a place that again has had a lot of success, and we want to continue and do as much as we've done up to this point. We want to make it even better and do everything we can, to try to continue to add to that success. And one thing I don't want to do is want to be a guy that has a big ego and say put my stamp on it or anything like that, because this program has had a lot of previous history. And my job as the caretaker of this program now is to maybe add a touch here and there and do everything we can to try to win a national championship, because that's our ultimate goal. And we've been really close. Again, we've been 6 times the World Series, so we've been really close. And we want to walk away with a trophy one day, whenever that is, to try to get to that ultimate goal.
That's great. We talked about earlier, Mississippi is a little bit unique from a community college perspective, with 29 of the 34 players have to come from the state of Mississippi. I know that's changing. I think it's going to be expanded a little bit, but because there's such great talent from the program perspective, you guys have got to do a really, really good job and a focused job on finding the right players, and maybe looking elsewhere or digging through, trying to find find the diamond in the rough. Talk about kind of what you do as a staff in finding those players in the state of Mississippi to come to Hinds Community College.
Yeah, it gets tougher every year. We're a state of, I don't know, 2.5, and a lot of 4-year colleges here in the state of Mississippi, and certainly our big 3 with Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Southern Miss. You're talking about 3 of the better baseball programs in the country, and so the best players in the state of Mississippi are probably going to go to one of those 3. Coming out of high school, if they're physically ready and they're ready to jump in there and play right away, and certainly neighboring states as well. But with LSU, being not 3 hours or so away from us. There's a lot of really good 4-year programs, and so that limits the best in the state. Then you go after that pool. Well, we're in an area of a lot of baseball talent, really good baseball programs, tradition-rich baseball programs. And so it's good for us in the fact that they're not that far from Raymond, but at the same time, there's everybody else wants them too, and so you've got some of the better programs in the better junior college programs in the state that are they're on the hunt and trying to get the same players as we are. And so we really target our area first. I know that's a cliche where you're working, from the inside out, but it's true. We've got 31 players on our roster right now, and 23 of them are from the Jackson metro area. So we're going to target this area first, and then branch out, accordingly. You mentioned the roster sizes. The roster has expanded to 35 players. And we can have up to 6 out-of-state players starting this next year. It used to just be 4. And so that was an incredibly narrow focus for our out-of-state guys, and you couldn't really miss on one. You wanted to make sure that you hit on your out-of-state players. Now with us having 6, you certainly still have to hit on them. You want to make sure that you're getting the right guys. But maybe you can take a little bit of a chance, or maybe look position specific, maybe more so than in the past. You just mainly go after an arm, or you go after a catcher or a shortstop. Now, if you need a hitter, you maybe can go out of state and get just a hitter. Whereas in the past, you felt like you needed a guy that fit in the middle of the diamond, and that wasn't always the case, but that's primarily what you look for. And so that's kind of where we narrow our focus from starting here in the metro area and then branching outward. North Louisiana has been good for us. The Monroe, Ruston area that has been a really good spot, because those guys are an hour and a half, 2 hours away from us, and they come over here, and it kind of gives them a place close to home, but kind of where they're doing their own thing too. They got their own college experience and coming to play for River. So that's kind of in a nutshell. That's where we look. We look in our area first, and then we kind of branch outward from there.
Do you where do you guys go? Is there a lot of college showcases? Do you have camps that you host? Do you work with the local high schools? Where do players? Where are they going to find Hinds? Kind of looking at looking for players.
Yes, hopefully everywhere. We try to be out and about as much as we can. We'll do 2 showcases throughout the course of the year. We'll do one in the fall, one in the early spring, and then we're always at other people's showcases. Everybody in the junior college system pretty much runs showcases, so we're out and about with that. The state games of Mississippi is big for us, which is hosted by Meridian, middle of June. That's a 4 or 5 day event where a lot of talent's there. The summer circuit's big for us. There's a number of really good travel organizations around our area. We host games at our field a lot. Certainly everybody else does as well. Really, if there's players, we're going to do everything we can to find them. I know you mentioned Diamond and Rough earlier. That's getting harder and harder to find just because of social media and the internet. Yeah. It's hard to slip somebody through the cracks anymore. Because everybody's got a profile, sending videos. It's great for the kids because it gives them more access. But it's hard to sneak somebody out of a small town, maybe like we used to be able to do. Usually, by the time you've seen somebody else has been in there to see them, or at least knows about them as well.
Last question, Coach. What type of player that you are you really looking for? I mean, beyond the capability in baseball, what are some of the intangibles that are really important to you and your staff?
You got to love the game. I think you have to love the game. I think if you like the game, it burns you out pretty quick, because we're going to play 50 to 55 games or so throughout the course of the regular season. Hopefully, we'll get more if we make the postseason. But there's a whole lot of days where you practice. There's a whole lot more days that you practice than you actually play the game. And so you have to be in love with this game. You have to be in love with the process of getting better. Whether that be through lifting weights, because we're going to be in the weight room a lot. That's important to us. The strength and conditioning element of it is a big time deal. And then the practice part of it. The practice part of it for us as coaches, that's our time. The games are for the players. I was a solid baseball player at best. My eligibility is far removed, and so I'm never going to step in the box. I'm never going to step on the mound. That's strictly the player's job to be able to do that. But they have to love to play the game, because if you love the game, love to play this game, if you're going through a slump, you're going to find a way to get into the batting cages. You're going to find a way to lift extra. You're going to find a way to put the extra work in that it takes to be successful. If you just like the game, then it's not a big deal. Then a 1 for 4 is not a big deal to you. If you love the game, then a 1 for 8 slump that you're going into, it eats you alive, and you're going to do everything you can get yourself back on track. So we want guys that love the game, that are obsessed with playing this game, because at the end of the day, this is a very, very small window of their life. If they live to be 75 years old, then you're talking 4 years of their life is spent playing college baseball. So you have to be borderline obsessed with it, for that small window. We want guys that want to play at the highest level possible. We want guys that want to play professional baseball, and not that they are, and the numbers say that. Not everybody's going to get a chance to do that, or very few are going to get a chance to do that. But that needs to be a goal and an aspiration of theirs. And then we want guys that are smart. Smart players tend to work their way out of slumps a little bit quicker. They tend to figure things out a little bit quicker, and want guys with an enthusiasm and play the game hard, that are good teammates, and that want to win. Because if they don't want to win, then we don't want them here. This is not just it is a small bump in the road for them and a small piece of their journey, with it being a 2-year deal. But at the same time, they're flipping the scoreboard on too. So we're going to do everything we can to try to win those ball games. And so those are the guys that we're looking for.
Coach, that was great. Now, I don't think we could have wrapped up any better than that. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about your program, kind of the kids you're looking for, the love of the game. We talk about it, but you really you defined it very, very well there, right? Getting out of slumps, the difficult times, getting into the weight rooms, the times, if you like it, it's more difficult to do those things, the little things, the things that matter during, the off times of when you're not playing. So I really appreciate that, Coach. Thank you very much. We look forward to watching your program, see how you guys do. And the state of Mississippi is not disappointing at all. I'm thrilled to kind of make the rounds through the state, and good luck this season.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yep.